Arnab, let me say that the sense of outrage you feel, you don't have a monopoly on it. So I think it's time to understand that an incident took place, an investigation was ordered within hours, responsibility will be fixed, succor has been provided to the extent possible, and there is a deep sense of anguish that unblemished or without a major incident of any kind like this, something like this has happened. We have to try and ensure it doesn't happen. It's a tragedy waiting to happen because you have a very large welfare scheme running across the country, and I entirely agree with the other panel.
Mr. Pawan Verma, you're there? Because your line is coming and going. Are you there? Are you there? Mr. Verma?
I am there, Arnab.
Yeah. So let me just say one thing to you. That you say that I don't have a right or what did you say? Monopoly or outrage. Well, Mr. Verma, you and your government and the political class of this country don't have a right to, righteousness either. And your government has pinned the blame on the supplier. Your government remains responsible for monitoring the implementation of the scheme. You say that I don't have a monopoly on outrage. Certainly I don't. But let me also remind you, Mr. Pawan Verma, it didn't take minutes for your party to politicize this incident. What do you mean when you say the school principal's husband is close to a prominent political leader, Mr. Verma? What do you mean when your education minister claims the children were poisoned? If you are saying there's a diabolical political conspiracy and you're hiding behind the fig leaf of that political conspiracy, I want you today to put out the specifics or say that your education minister should be sacked.
I'm going to say to you that this is the first case which is not one of food poisoning, but initial preliminary findings show that it's a case of poisoning.
Of course, because it's pesticides.
No should be made.
Of course, because it's pesticides. What do you expect?
Is completed. It is a case of poisoning as it appears now, where whether it's intentional or whether it's not is a question that the investigation will reveal. I want to also state that this kind of negligence is not a pattern or a norm.
No.
It's not a norm in the implementation of the scheme in Bihar. It has happened, it's a terrible tragedy. And the investigations will be held, and whatever actions can be taken to prevent this kind of thing.
You've had Madhubani today, you've had Gaya today.
By government which is normally very proactive in these matters.
Look, in one day we've had 3 cases from yesterday to today. We have a case of arsenic poisoning because of water in a school. We have a case of insecticide poisoning. Actually, it's not poisoning. There was insecticide in the pesticide in the food, and through a school. And I think we've committed to our children that we will give you that 1 meal a day. And these are, you and I both know that these are the poorest of the poor. These are children who are getting no other meal in the day. And if we can't provide them a good quality meal, that is not going to make them die.
I think it's so terrible. It's so terrible, Pawan Verma, that you are among the more erudite people in the political class, that you should be hiding behind the fact of poisoning. Of course it's poisoning, and that's the worst thing about it, because organic phosphorus is poison, and that comes from a pesticide, and your government is monitoring a scheme that is feeding children pesticide, and the children are dying, and the monitoring is supposed to be done by you. And then you want to caustically and sarcastically talk about the outrage people feels. Let me tell you, Pawan Verma, you are out of touch with the people of this country, because that outrage is felt by everyone, not just me tonight. But I'll go across to our next guest, Dr. Chandan Yadav of the Bihar Pradesh Congress Committee, as far as this, because I want all political parties represented. Your views on what has been going on and, the political blame game that's happened. Dr. Chandan Yadav.
Yeah, Arnab, just two quick points. I would like to respond to our BJP representative. Here BJP coming out of power has been shedding crocodile tears and showing that frustration after coming out of power. Having said that, the Bihar Pradesh Congress Committee led by our president visited the hospital.
Oh, please don't give me a...
where the suffering children had been hospitalized for the care. And also he tried to go to Chhapra, but because of the
please don't give me an account. I am not interested in what your Bihar Pradesh Congress Committee chief has done or not done. That's not my question. Do you have any solutions in sight? Do you have anything specific to say what has happened?
I said, let me come to what we have demanded. Yeah, what we have demanded. See, one of the time is to come to the solution. As far as a young politician who have chosen politics, who get motivated and whose resolves is more after listening to all this, we have demanded a thorough inquiry, and through inquiry the buck has to be fixed, and exemplary punishment should be given to those guilty.
I'm hearing
and we have also asking for a committee recommendation so that this should be the last incident of this kind happening in Bihar. What happens generally in all these incidents, we set up an inquiry committee and we do not proceed further of seeing to it that such incidents do not take place. So we also want the Bihar government to set up a committee.
So these committees are useless. I'm telling you. So these committees, I don't know. I don't know this. I'm sorry. These committees are completely useless. Because these committees were set up in 2010. What committee do you want when the Planning Commission of India told you?
He's from the Congress party. What else do you expect? They've set up 1,000 committees for their own corruption in India.
No, what you can expect from BJP, who don't value human lives and Papi's life. So let me try to tell you. Arnab, today was also a day for a national awareness campaign for our food security. Where we were discussing, where our policy, we are discussing how to take care of the child.
Please don't. No, I'm sorry. I am sorry. I reject outright.
If Lalu is responsible for destroying Bihar, so are you. You were the person who backed up Lalu in the first place.
This has nothing to do with politics.
You go ahead, Biswaro.
Can we please talk about the solution for children?
One second, listen to please. Mr. Dr. Yadav, listen to a non-political voice. Listen to the non-political voice. Shazia, 1 minute, please. Let Pooja speak. And Annie Koshi is... Dr. Yadav,
just one point, please.
Dr. Yadav,
one point.
Dr. Yadav, 1 minute, please. Before you make your next point, I want to tell you that I reject all these predictable things. We'll set up a committee, we'll look into it, an investigation is on, let us see what happens. This incident has happened after a long time. This is a rarity. The media must not jump to the conclusions. The media is bad. I know this predictable cycle that politicians go through, and I don't think it's going to help. Will it help? That's not what we are.
No, just for a moment.
No, please, one second.
I did not mean that.
Listen to Pooja, please. Pooja, 1 second. Pooja is speaking, please.
Can we just, like Annie said, can we find out who is responsible? What exactly happened in this situation? Yes, you must find out. But more importantly, for the future, let us be clear about where accountability will be fixed. Not at the local contractor level, but who is actually made responsible for supervising this. We all know that these responsibilities have been fixed. In the right to education, in the midday meal scheme, these responsibilities are fixed. In the bureaucracy, as well as in the political class. So once that responsibility is fixed, then you hold that person responsible. It's not about this party or that party.
Responsibility has to come from the heart. Responsibility cannot be forced. You see, you can't have a situation, I'm sorry, like Mr. Raja never felt responsible for the 2G scam. Suresh Kalmari never felt responsible for the CWG scam. They had to be pushed and cajoled into taking responsibility. Now the case is Annie Koshi. You asked a very specific point. I really appreciate. You said, let's get down to specifics. Now, Ms. Koshi, 1 minute, please. 1 minute. Ms. Koshi's the simple question. The implementation was sought for, it was not being done. The Planning Commission asked questions, the HRD Ministry asked questions. Still it happened, which means the minister was not doing his job, which means the minister is responsible. And the same minister has the courage to come out and try and give a political spin to it. The guilty party is giving it a political spin.
Say something.
Yes, Ms. Koshi.
Can I? Yeah, what I want to say is I did talk about specifics because I think that we lose ourselves in generalities. But I also want to say I'm principal of a school. I'm not sort of looking after the nation, and I'm sure it's a bigger job there. When we're doing something, we don't wait for something to happen before we put systems in place.
Correct.
We are working before it happens. If my school bus is running, I have to say, foresee how will the children go, where will they stand in line, how will I actually work towards stopping an incident rather than after it happens. Now I think that what is the system in place has to be looked at again and again to foresee such things that can happen and counteract and counterwork against them. And I don't think that's really happening. And another thing I want to say, a very, very important thing is monitoring a system.
Absolutely.
There is somebody who has to monitor what's happening, and that person has to be an honest person who has the children's welfare at heart. I'm afraid the children's welfare is not foremost in our minds. We don't have to wait for the midday meal. They're starving children. The Brahmaputra is overflowing. We can see pictures of those children. They're not getting anything to eat. They'll die anyway.
I think
so what is our system? Who monitors the system is something that the politician, I don't think the politician is even bothered about what's happening. But who is? Is the IAS officer monitoring it? Who's supposed to be sitting out there? Who's below him? I want those people to stand up and say, did you do your job? Did you monitor? Did you check the grains?
No.
Did you eat it?
No.
Are you sampling it before the kids sample it?
Absolutely.
No, because it's
and the day the bureaucrat, the day, you see the first thing from all the cases I have researched, the bureaucrats and the politicians, the first thing that they do is that they take away their responsibility, then they form a committee, they take short-term action against the contractor, and I would not be surprised if tomorrow the same contractor comes back to the system and the politician carries on as if the incident does not happen. And that is why I find all those arguments of politicians, you know, that this is a rarity, it happens once in a while, it should not happen, we should not be judgmental, that's all extremely facetious. Shazia wants to come in. Shazia.
You know, I've been hearing this war of words, and I really feel so sad and anguished about the fact that instead of indulging in a war of words, why don't the politicians, why don't the elected representatives, why don't the bureaucrats work on a war footing to fix the system? Obviously, the system is rotting away, and there is terribly wrong with this picture. If you look at the nodal officers, if you look at how the meal is being cooked, midday meal by the Supreme Court directive is a legal entitlement. So this should be a criminal offense if something like this happens, and responsibility will not come from the heart. I'm sorry to say, it will only come when it's a criminal offense and people are imprisoned, when they're punished. Only then responsibility will come. And there's somebody, Renuka Chaudhary had mentioned this earlier in the show, that there's no magic solution to the problem. There is a magic figure. There is a magic solution, and the solution is this: elected representatives were to eat this meal. If their children were to eat this meal, if the children of the mighty and the powerful people in the system were to eat the meal, they would know better than to allow for the meal to be contaminated in any way or made with spurious ingredients whatsoever. So I think somewhere there's a whole disconnect. This only happened not because there is no concern of welfare for the children, but the only crime was that they're poor children. And somewhere part of India doesn't care about these hungry millions. A lot of schemes are made, but the schemes only add to another mafia, which is a midday mafia. So if you look at the land mafia, water tanker mafia, if you look at the land mafia, there is big reality companies involved. If you look at now midday meals, the contractors in cahoots with the government servants, with elected representatives are running these schemes. So we have to address that. And unless they feel the heat, nothing will change. So they must be made to feel the heat, which will only happen.
You know, I don't think
imprisonment. And
I don't think, and this question goes to Pawan Verma, I don't think the person who allowed the pesticides to be mixed with the food would have done so despite being warned by the cook in this case that don't do it, as we have a witness on record saying don't do it, yet they said go ahead and cook it in the way it is despite the pesticides being mixed. I don't think, do you think, Pawan Verma, somebody would be so callous, or unless they felt that they had some level of protection within the system? Unless that person felt protected, they would not take a chance with the lives of these children. What do you think, Mr. Verma?
No, I think that whatever the reasons, they need to... I've said it to you, Arnab, that an inquiry must reveal and accountability should be established and people should go to jail for it. It's precisely what's going to happen. This is not a state which has been kind to criminalization in the functioning of government. I'm sure it will happen now. Let's see that it happens fast enough.
I hope it happens, Mr. Verma.
The Forensic Science Laboratory report. The Chief Judicial Magistrate has to sanction it coming. An FIR has to be registered. A judicial an inquiry has been ordered. Everything is in process immediately.
I will follow that process. And I just want to say one thing. I completely agree with the views of Shazia here, that it is because these are poor children. These are not children who have a choice between a pizza and a burger. These are the poorest of children who perhaps, even if they found that the food did not taste well, did not taste good, would have it because they were hungry, and that is the tragedy of this country. I hope this is followed up, because we here at Times Now have promised to follow this story, and we will. Thank you for joining me on this discussion on the Newshour tonight. Thank you.